Does default echo vocal?
Hopefully not anymore. That was just me being stupid.
Okay.
All right. So we're currently missing Ramon, but he should be here any minute. And we're planning on, I'll do the demo on the front end, and Lucas will do the demo on the API, and Ramon will do the demo on the back end. And I was going to have Ramon talk a little bit here, but I guess I'll just touch on some of the goals that we had for this sprint. It was an experimental sprint on the future of what Plone will look like, sort of thinking about the 2020 discussion goals that have been in the works for many years. So it was some of the technologies we've been playing with are, well, before I talk about technologies, I'll talk about general goals here. The idea is for like headless Plone, an API-driven CMS, and to do that, we need a very complete API, REST API, and we need a back end that can perform better, and we need a front end that can utilize the APIs appropriately. So there's we're kind of decoupling the front end from the back end, at least as much as we can, and it allows us to leverage newer JavaScript web technologies. Anything else that anybody else would like to add? Timo, do you want to talk about the API?
Yeah,
shortly?
Why not? Hi guys. Yeah, we did quite a good progress again during the last days regarding the API. I mean, we already had a Plone.rest alpha release that is used in production and like for many companies and projects. We added a few nice features to that, and we're about to make another last alpha release, and then we're happy to go to beta. In regards to Plone REST API, I think we're close to being able to make a first alpha release. We added quite a few new features, worked on the overall design. Yeah, and I'm really happy with the progress we did. Lucas will go more into details what we did, and I can show a few performance tests results that I just did. Yep.
All right. All right. Well, I think we'll just hand it off to Lucas, and he can talk about the API then.
Sure.
Yeah, that's good. So I'll share my screen with you guys, so you can hopefully see the document. Oh, there we go. Screen option. This should be better. Yeah. So maybe at first, a quick introduction using the documentation we have. At this point, documentation should be pretty much complete for the functionality that is contained in Plone REST API. The most central part would probably be the CRUD operations, which basically are mapped to the corresponding HTTP verbs. So you're using get to read, post on a container to create a resource. You can use either patch or put to update a resource or replace it entirely. And delete is mapped to the delete verb. The overall format of a response is maybe best displayed using a get. So if you do a get request using the application JSON header as your accept header, then you'll get a JSON representation of any object in Plone, be it folderish or non-folderish. At the top, we start with the ID, which is the canonical representation of the URL to that object. Its portal type, and then basically all the attributes of the object are serialized to JSON. Where necessary, those are transformed on the way, like datetimes can't be serialized to JSON directly, so there's like they get serialized to ISO dates. And pretty much the same format applies on the way in. If you're creating content, you're just sending that representation. During the sprint, we created some additional endpoints. These are mostly implemented as so-called named services or just named endpoints where you call it on a context or maybe on the site route. And in combination with the proper HTTP work that invokes a particular operation. So we have endpoints for reading out workflow information, triggering workflow transitions right now, getting and setting registry records, and we do have search. So just quickly regarding search, this is basically a contextual search. You can invoke it on any endpoint, then by default the search will be restricted to that path, but this is more focused on like a human interaction where it's pretty convenient to be able to call the search endpoint on any particular context. In a use case where you're talking about a front-end application that uses it, you'd probably be invoking it always in the same place. So I think that's about it concerning the documentation. For example, here are details on how the serialization actually works in detail for types that aren't trivially serialized to JSON. Other than that, a Python integer will be serialized to JSON like a JavaScript integer, and so on. That should be pretty straightforward. There's an introductory page regarding authentication. Basically, any authentication method supported by PASS works as long as it's applicable to the API in some sense. During that sprint, we also worked on a token-based authentication using JWT web tokens. So that's in. And yeah, basically, I think I could do a demo using Postman. This is all like documented. It's usually in the way of an HTTP request. Whoever uses that will know how to do an HTTP request, set headers, and so on with his client library. But Postman is useful for an interactive demo like this. So that's what I'll be using. This is my Plone site that's currently running, and I'll be doing GET request on the site route. So this is the serialized representation I get back. In the member attribute here, we have the children of the immediate children of the site route, and these are represented as summaries. So they're not fully serialized. There's not going to be every single attribute or field of those children in there, but it's just a summary. And there's a link that points to the canonical URL for that child. So what I can do is open that link in Postman, create a new request, and this will send me to the full representation of the child object. So this is the way the hypermedia part of the API is supposed to work. Everything is linked, is discovered or discoverable using links, and we can use Postman to to demonstrate this further by just following these links. So now I'm in a page nested in a folder on the Plone side root. Another thing you might be seeing here, if I show the representation of this this folder, it's currently batched. This is something I've been working on the sprint here, and the batch links are also in hypermedia style. So you're not really supposed to do your own calculations on page numbers and batch sizes and so on, but instead you have a batching property that that tells you which is the next page or the last page, whatever. In this case, all items fit in the batch, so I'll be changing the batch size to 10 instead of the default of 25. So now we see we do actually have a next link that sends us to the next batch page. So these items we end at 9. And if we continue using the next link, we get the second page of the batch. And yeah, this is how the content is represented here. Maybe someone else wants to do a demo of anything they worked on. Other than that, I think
All right,
for a brief demo, that's about it.
Ramon, or did you want to say something for more right now?
Want the performance test now, or?
Or we can do it. We can wait till after. We can wait until after.
Okay, sure.
Ramon, do you want to?
The backend?
Yep.
Okay.
1, 2, 3. To work. Yeah.
Hang on, I'll mute myself.
So I'm going to share the screen. Whoop. Okay, so I think I'm sharing. So what we did is we created like a merge of a pyramid idea plus ZOP2 idea in something completely from scratch. We are using as a base HTTP server AOHTTP. That's that works in a Asyncio with Python 3.5. And we tried to create a package. Well, we created a package called Plone.server. That what it does is provides you a traversal implementation that in the same way that more or less ZOP is doing, but just trying to avoid the things that are blocking us for enabling different API definitions. All the traversal is also content negotiation aware, so on the language point of view and the content type that you are asking for. So it's implemented in the same traversal. And it provides you the different ways to define views for specific content. ASCO did a really great job integrating Asyncio on the on the ZODB connection, so we are able to have asynchronous calls that connects also to ZODB to access content. We still have some problems when we have different writings at the ZODB at the same time. But from the API point of view, the site is configured on a JSON file. You can see it here. You define which are the methods that are enabled on your site. The default layer, so we provide also options to customize and provide different customization layers on top of that. The definition, the default configuration of the cores, the possible renderers, the different languages that are enabled, and for each content type that we have, which endpoints and the HTTP verbs. For example, if I want to do a get on a dexterity content type, I need the permission access content and default get. We also implemented, we are using all the ZOP toolkit, ZOP3 toolkit packages to ZOP security and ZOP components to provide the same infrastructure of security and the same infrastructure of components. So, and in the repository, there is also a package called Plone.example, which provides you like custom content type. We created a to-do content type where you define in a schema, like in Plone right now, and you can define a view. If you want, you can then define in your API configuration this content type, the view, it's this class. And with this extension package, you can provide your own content. Right now, the factory or the creation of the site, it's still by code. We create the site. We also integrated Plone App Registry there. So all the configuration of the site is on a Plone registry that is configured on the root of the site. That avoids having any other configuration actions maybe configured here. Everything that you need of configuration of your site will be on the Plone registry. And it's also defined as there is a ZOP component registry that it's on the site, so you can override default components that are defined on GCML on your own site there. And we defined something to create asynchronous utilities that are going to run parallel to your application that can do different tasks, asynchronous tasks, like calling any other service external, provide the queue system, or whatever thing that you need. So does it work? Yeah, it works. So here you can see we start the sandbox. Now there is a lot of debugging information. You can see that there is a utility. I can show you this utility. Where is it? Where is it? Yeah, there's this utility here. It's a simple utility which provides an asynchronous, it's a infinite loop that prints test. So there is a Asyncio process that it's printing this test, and at the same time I can go to the web. Let me see where I have one. Yeah, here, and I can print or access the web and traverse through it. So I can go to a Plone site. In this case, there is no renderer, but I can go to a dexterity content type, and I can see the serialization. In order to do all this magic, everything is in Python 3.5 for the Asyncio. Eric and Asko did a really great job migrating Plone dexterity, Plone supermodel, Plone JSON serializer, alter ego, RFC 82 UID to Python 3.5. There is no CMF. The Plone dexterity classes are, as you can see here, where is it, the item? They do not depend on CMF anymore, so we don't need anything else below that. It's still experimental. There is a lot of work. We implemented some kind of pass plugins, so we can extract the GWT, the JSON Web Token that the API is requiring. We can get users from external services. So right now we implemented a simple OAuth connection. So users are not on the Plone site. It's only content. So we can connect the Plone to a OAuth service to provide you with users and authorization for the content. And it works. The permissions works. And yeah, I don't know if I'm missing. Am I missing something?
No.
Eric, do you think that I'm missing something?
Well, WebSockets.
Oh yeah, we are going to provide an example how to serve a WebSocket connection, so you can access the ZODB through WebSocket. One of the ideas is implement the same API that we are using for the REST API that we can access through WebSocket framing, so we can have real-time applications and some other WebSocket features like collaborative edition or something like that. It's clear that the Asyncio it's working because the processes are running parallel to the process that is serving the HTTP, and we can connect everything together and create different other async tasks that run there. I think I'm not missing anything.
All right, I will demo the front end, which is, I'll just do this. The front end is nice. Is based off of Plone 5 server running the API. So this is what it looks like when you're not logged in. You can still access content. The navigation and the breadcrumbs and the content is all, everything here is rendered from the API, doing API calls. We can log in. And now we can see private content on the page. We get a really basic toolbar, Plone toolbar. The toolbar contents right now are rendered from API calls to get that data. You can traverse the site still, and you can edit pages. Eric did a lot of work on JSON schemas and rendering JSON schemas in Angular 2, sort of like starting a form library, but it's not quite ready yet, so it's not part of the demo. And some of these things are mocked, so they're not completely integrated, but you can add a document. And searching works using the search endpoint. And yeah, I think that's it. Is anybody, or Timo, do you want to talk about, or I guess, yeah, Timo's going to now talk about some of the performance testing he's worked on, and you guys can ask questions afterwards if you'd like.
Do you see my monitor now?
Not yet. Not yet.
Crap. Isn't it enough to... Oh, yeah, okay. Now?
Yeah.
Ah, great. So, yeah, I wrote a few very basic JMeter tests because I wanted to know like how fast the API calls actually are. So first thing that we tested was authenticated users. Sorry, I just finished the test. So first was anonymous users, just read performance. So basically, all the content, possible content objects we have. The graph is a bit messed up. I think there's a problem with JMeter on OS X. But basically, every request takes around like 500 milliseconds, depending on the type, and also here are a few like a folder with like 1,000 items in it. That will take a bit longer, so we were talking about like 500 milliseconds. Then authenticated users add a bit more to that, and then we have the write performance. Where is it? No, this is dexterity. This is this is the post request to create objects. That's around like 1,400 milliseconds. Yeah, I mean, performance tests in general are hard to compare, right? Because I'm running like 30 concurrent users, 10 concurrent users and 30 requests each. And I think the performance tests so far are quite promising. Would be interesting to see end-to-end performance tests for like with web page tests or anything. But I plan to set that up So we can run the performance test continuously to catch performance regressions early, and that's the basic idea. Yeah, this will it.
And we need to compare to the new bucket.
Yeah, of course. That will be really interesting. Yeah, and we can also compare archetypes against dexterity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anything else?
I don't think so. You want to ask if anybody has questions?
Anybody has questions? You're all muted.
That's right.
Ask a question in the chat.
So, Timo, can you just from a gut feeling compare the how do you feel the performance will compare to default Plone?
Oh. Wait a moment, Philip.
Okay.
Now you can say.
Okay.
Okay, cool.
That's very interesting. Can you do you have a gut feeling how the performance will compare to standard Plone as it is now?
That's hard to compare because we're just doing like the requests from the content core, right? And the like an HTML page that will take a lot longer. But it's comparing apples to oranges, right? So
yeah, I mean, when you add in your head the HTML that you return, not the JSON.
I did enough performance tests in my life to know that I shouldn't do that because it does not work like that. But we can get a really good comparison if we just run web page tests because the web page test allows you to run the entire it uses a browser, right? So it renders the entire page, no matter if it's JavaScript or whatever, because JMeter just does requests, right? So it's good to measure the performance of single like endpoint calls and like old style web applications, but not like modern ones. But we can use web page tests and then run a test against an old Plone 5 site or whatever, and a Plone 5 site with the new JSON API and also with the new server backend, right? So that gives us a real comparison then. But we first have to build the front end and finish it before we can actually run tests. I mean, actually, we could set up those tests right away, more or less. But we need, I mean, it would need to share comparable content, right? Otherwise, it would not make sense. And setting up web page tests is actually we could do that as well. Yeah.
Okay, so I can answer the question from David. So Eric Barrow speaking. Yeah, the teaming will be actually based into the Angular 2 project, but we are using Webpack, and I've made a preloader, so Webpack can get any piece of element from the team from the server. So you compile with Webpack, you compile your sim locally, and if anything has been overridden on the server, on the backend, you will get it, and it will be integrated into your resulting package. So basically, it allows to override anything you want without doing any Angular or Webpack development, just providing whatever you want by just naming the same way they are supposed to be named into the original theme, which is a way to guarantee that we're going to have through the web theming working really easily. And Diazo, well, we do not have Diazo here. We are composing pages using the Angular components, and that's basically how we're going to organize a new layout. So we have some registries. So we have a component registry, we have view registry, and a field registry also for forms. So this kind of sounds like what we have in Plone right now, but it's Angular based and it works really nicely. And as Nathan mentioned, the form generator, the equivalent of the Z3C form, let's say, is not totally working right now because we still have issue with binding. But yeah, it's really promising, and Angular 2 is a really nice framework for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we should also mention that we want to use Angular 2 Universal at some moment for doing server-side rendering. But we try it. We are not doing anything that forbids us to do server-side rendering. But Angular 2 Angular 2 Universal is still in development, and there is some tricky bugs. So it works when Angular 2 Universal solves the bugs it has. But right now we are just having some problems with the new router, Angular 2 Universal, and these kind of things. But when they solve that kind of problems, everything should work out of the box.
All right, guys. If there's no other questions, thanks. We'll see you. Bye. And bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.